Hello and welcome to GreKaosAngel Gaming. I'm GreKaosAngel and thank you for joining me for a brand new Let's Play. Today we're going to be playing through Final Fantasy IX, a game that is important on so many different levels for so many different reasons for me. I'll get into those reasons in just a second, so let's go ahead and start a new game and we get all this sort of intro stuff out of the way. For a little bit of background history, Final Fantasy IX came out in North America for release on November 13th, 2000, about a month after the release of the PlayStation 2. So this does make Final Fantasy IX the last true Final Fantasy to ever grace the PlayStation 1. A couple of reasons for that. It's another reason why this game seems to be overlooked by a lot of fans and a lot of people who are into JRPGs. Since it came out on the heels of the PlayStation 2's release, people were kind of ready to move on to the next generation. Some people were turned off by the weird kind of character models, but I think it all gives itself a real charm to the game. This also marks one of the last Final Fantasy games that Hironobu Sakaguchi worked on. In some sources cite that it is his favorite game in the series and that it kind of returns the series back to its medieval fantasy settings, back to its roots, and it is the most core of what a Final Fantasy game is, at least according to Sakaguchi. I can agree with that statement, and I can see where he's coming from if that was an actual thing he said, and that's not just something that somebody put in Wikipedia. What's interesting, though, is... I lost my train of thought there for a second. What's interesting, though, is Final Fantasy IX is... It knows what it is, and it takes itself seriously when it needs to, and it doesn't when it doesn't have to. And it throws back so many references to the series up to that point, that if you've played the game up to this point, you'll find something to smile about. Especially for me, this is one of arguably the first JRPGs I ever played. Certainly the first true Final Fantasy game I ever played. And also one of the first Let's Plays I ever did when I started Let's Playing back in 2009. So it's been a long time coming that I want to kind of return to my JRPG roots as well as my Let's Play roots. And I figure now's the time to do it. My recording stuff has changed drastically throughout the years, and with a new channel comes a new beginning. So without any further ado, let's play Final Fantasy IX. Now, Final Fantasy IX came out during a time when there was still text dialogue, and there will be a lot of it. I typically won't read out loud what's on screen. I might paraphrase, a lot of stuff, but I will do my best not to try to become too overbearing and annoying. I don't like people that do the stupid voices for every character. It might be entertaining to some, but it can also come across as extremely irritating. Maybe you're not taking yourself too seriously. And with this Let's Play, since it is the second most knowledgeable Final Fantasy I know about, in the sense that I know so much about this game, I want to kind of give you guys as much information as possible. Some interesting things you may not have picked up on if you've played the game before. And if for first-time players, there's lots to learn here. So basically, the theater ship we're on is just various information that we can find out about it. What's interesting is the world of Final Fantasy IX is scattered with stuff like that. And anytime you find something interesting in the game, you'll find exclamation marks or question marks will kind of give you some hint that you're near something you might want to investigate. Real quickly, it's probably not noticeable for you, depending on what device you're reviewing this on, but I've cropped the image because Final Fantasy IX came out at a time when aspect ratios were 4:3 instead of 16:9 like they are now. And that generational gap between the type of TVs we have now and then is going to cause us a little bit of a headache, but not much. Real quick, we'll mess around with some configurations and then we'll really get into the meat of the game. ATB set to active. This is technically the last ATB style Final Fantasy. 13 I would say doesn't really count. considering you can take actions before the bar is completely full. We're going to run as our default movement. Battle speed is maximum. This is one of Final Fantasy IX's biggest weaknesses. The battle system is extremely slow. Even with other things going on, it's the slowest of all the Final Fantasies. Field message, that's fine. Your icon, basically, it's the little hand that tells us where we're at. This is something that's interesting. We can jump over to Classic, which is the first real throwback to the early Final Fantasies on like the Nintendo and Super Nintendo. I'm going to stick with the gray. Target window. If you press select on your controller, anywhere in the menus, even in battle, it'll give you some hints and helpful tips as to what you're messing with. Okay, so basically if we're in battle and we want to display information, we can do that with L2. Or, no, I think we can actually get rid of that. That's for like summons and stuff. The images will, like our status bar and health bar and all that will go away. But I think that's all we need to tackle right now, so let's go ahead and follow the instructions and light the candle and see what happens. Okay, so now we get to name our characters. I'm going to leave everything on the default. And because this game is so ingrained in my mind as when I first played it, this is Zidane. I know some people, I think the official pronunciation is Zidane. I don't care. I'm going to be pronouncing things the way that I would. I will do my best to try and provide what I believe is the correct pronunciation beforehand, but I'm not 100% on everything on that. And here we have our first boss. Now, because Final Fantasy IX kind of returns us more to a class, sort of pseudo-class system with each character kind of specializing in a role, even though there's no job system, our main character is a thief by trade. Ouch. And basically, we want to steal from bosses. Typically, is a very good idea. This boss, Masked Man, he'll have a potion. He'll have the Mage Masher, which is the semi-rare item that we definitely want to take from him. He also has a common equipment called the Wrist. We're going to definitely go after that. But if you want to, definitely try to steal the Mage Masher. And once you have that, then we can kind of just go ahead and beat him, because that will be the next upgrade for our main character in terms of weaponry. Come on, jeez. Sometimes you'll get stuff very quickly, sometimes not. That's the one thing about the steal system in Final Fantasy IX is you might get extremely lucky, you might not. And that's another reason I want the battle messages to kind of linger for a little while, because I don't want to accidentally miss that we did in fact steal this frickin' Mage Masher. Come on. I'm having some incredibly bad luck. There we go. Pretty much once we've gotten that, all we can do is just attack until we win. Final Fantasy IX does this thing where bosses do not yield experience. So if you plan the game accordingly, you can very quickly get through the game at extremely low levels. I mean, you can fight some of the final fights, I believe, at level 1. Another thing is every enemy more or less contains a type. So certain abilities and skills that some characters can learn can give you attack bonuses to specific types of enemies, as well as the basic elemental resistances and defenses. Not defenses, but offenses, like what they're weak to and what they resist. But like I mentioned at the very beginning, the character models are what really throw some longtime fans off. because you're coming on the heels of Final Fantasy VIII, which was very realistic, you know, proportionally to this very cheapy, cartoony kind of style, which I think lends itself its charm, like I said, but to each his own. But really, everybody should give it if you look past some of the graphical things, there's an amazing game to be had. Okay, so we are tenantless. We have to steal. Our plan is to kidnap the princess. Okay, now here's what's interesting. If, obviously we're supposed to select the second option, but if you select the first option, like this, if you select that, I believe 50, 60 times, something like that, you'll get a short little cut of dialogue from a character we won't meet for a little while. It's a little bit of a tidbit in there, a little interesting thing there. In case you want to take the time to do that. We're not going to. We're going to progress with the plot here. I think I might actually slow down the text speed just a little bit further because I can read rather quick, and I want to give you guys an opportunity to read it too instead of having to pause the video or wait for my paraphrasing if we're in a long sequence. Another thing I will attempt and endeavor to do is I typically will not talk incessantly throughout the FMVs and cutscenes. I try to keep that to a minimum so you can experience what the game is experiencing and showing for you. But of course, this is the introduction stuff. We kind of got to go over some stuff. I will probably miss some things. I will do my best to endeavor to remember more or less where everything is at. I do have a handy little FAQ open, more specifically so I know which bosses have specific things I want to definitely try to get. There is a skill that Zidane gets that you can basically see what is on an enemy. You can take all the time in the world to try and acquire that if you want, but it's not necessary. And probably not in the commentary section of this Let's Play, but probably in post-edit. Don't quote me on this. It depends on how easy it's going to be to do. I'll probably throw up some sort of text on screen that helps out with like enemy stats and information, so that if you're playing this for the first time and you're following along with me, you might have some idea of what you're up against and how strong enemies are going to be. And here's another thing. The reason why we're doing the PSN version, PS1 Classic on the PlayStation 3 instead of the Steam version, which has come out, because it is 2017 and it came out, I think, a year or two back. Even though they have updated the 3D models to better texture and HD, and they've kind of upscaled a lot of the FMVs, unfortunately, things like that little girl's dialogue, they took the misspelling, which is supposed to be charming and characteristic of like a little girl would, you know, with dialogue like that. They've corrected it. They've fixed the grammar, and that's just why it just seems weird. Another thing is they were unable to, and I don't know why this is. It might just because Square doesn't have the resources anymore. When they handed it off to, I think, Silicon Studios worked on it, the Steam version. All of the pre-rendered backgrounds like we're currently sitting on do actually have, or most of them actually surprisingly contain HD. They were done originally in very high detail. And there's supposed to be another card. And we should have a Sahagan card over here. But I guess for whatever reason, they didn't have access to those resources to throw in, even though they're available online. And here's another thing. So a lot of statues and memorial type stuff will be scattered throughout the game, so we can kind of learn about the history of the entire world of Final Fantasy IX. Yeah, before I forget, I want to mess around with that configuration. There we go. We'll leave it right there in the halfway point. Now these cards that we're picking up, Final Fantasy IX does have a card minigame, very similar to Triple Triad. A little bit different in the sense that it doesn't have regional rules. Pretty much one rule setting works for everything. The reason I bring this up is because we will, at some point in the time to progress the plot, are forced to play through the card game, which is called Tetramaster. You can pretty much play with just about anybody who can be interacted with by pressing square. We're not, and here's another throwback, Red Mage to the very beginning of Final Fantasy, you know, the class system. We're not going to be playing it a lot. I do enjoy it more than Triple Triad, but you can look at your card collection and you can see that we have some strange, it's not like Triple Triad in the sense that there's a specific score. These are like hexadecimal, like alphanumerical, weird kind of ways of deciding. So there is a way to look up what your card stats are based on what its numbers and letters are, but I don't know it off the top of my head. So a lot of it's going to kind of be blind luck when we do play. Obviously, the higher the alphanumerical stuff, obviously the better it's going to be. But for the purposes of the game, you can more or less get through it without any trouble. Typically I get about 3 of each just for now. We really shouldn't have too much trouble in this first section. And now this shop here is the synthesis shop, which is interesting. I think this is an ether. Yep. Final Fantasy IX gives us the opportunity to take items that we have, armor and equipment, and give them up in order to create stronger equipment. Which is kind of cool. I don't think that we could read those wanted posters. No, we can't. Final Fantasy IX also has a bunch of little mini games you can play in various areas. Like here, we can play a jump rope mini game. If you get, I believe, up to 1,000, you'll get like the King of Jump Rope, you know, title and a bunch of other stuff, but that's a lot. And I imagine that games like this are going to become a lot more difficult when you play on newer TVs. don't believe there's anything in the inn. We can go ahead and talk to the ticket person to progress the game. Okay, so we've got some more cards. I think it's interesting that we have a fake ticket. And you'll see why in just a moment. How would he know we have a phony ticket? I think that when he ran into us, he you know, switched our tickets. Or gave us a bad ticket. Yeah, sure you did. Basically, you have to. And once our little pickpocket has left, we can go up and talk to I had wanted to play a game with him, but I guess that it didn't work out that way. Now, I believe we can kind of jump back and forth here, and he might eventually be... There we go. I guess we had to talk to him instead of trying to play a game with him. It's not his real name. Spoiler alert. Well, yes we do. I'm not going to go over the real specifics, so it'll take a while, but we will play a game so you can get an idea of what it's like. Hopefully we win. It'd be very embarrassing to lose. Yeah. You can see he has 4 arms. That might give a clue as to who he might be. Let's open. I'm not even sure if he actually does tell us. Oh, I guess we have to. Okay, well, take turns. We flip because of the arrows. You know, if we have 2 arrows that touch each other, basically we have to do a battle. Basically, every card has a specific value that kind of, when challenged, they'll kind of like weaken the other one. It's strange because sometimes there will be cards that have much higher scores still lose to ones with lower scores. So there's some technical stuff there that I just don't quite 100% understand. I'm sure there's plenty of mechanical FAQ guides out there that can kind of explain it a lot more in detail. But it doesn't have to be, you know, all that perfect. As long as you can get through the plot required gaming, you'll be okay. You can collector's levels, just how many cards you have. I think if you have 1 of every card, that will probably, don't quote me on that, is probably what you're aiming for. Alright. Alright, what do we got here? That's a decent card. That's good. I'm trying to find some cards that have some good scores. You want to kind of get ones that are going to kind of be pretty decent all around. Trying to think, what do we need to get covered here? We currently don't have anything in the top right or top left corner. Well, no, that's not true. Man, that's... Well, you know what? We'll see what we got. Now, what Tetramaster does is these stone blocks will kind of pop out like that, where we'll have... You're kind of limited in where you can place your cards on the 4x4 grid. Ideally, you want to put ones that are going to be able to defend in certain areas. So obviously, I don't think that we could win. I don't. Well, you know, yeah, we want to be able to try and turn some. So let's go ahead and place. Well, let's just do something like this. Let's do the goblin card right down there. Then we can come over to something like this and immediately turn it. But unfortunately, it immediately turns that one. So right now we're tied. We're kind of having some difficulty here. So we got a draw, so at least we didn't lose that time. Yeah, we're not going to bother rematching. It'd be nice to win, but I think that gives you a decent introduction to Tetramaster, and we can kind of move on from that. Now you can probably fight it, challenge him to a card game over and over. He does have some pretty decent cards at this early stage. I don't know if any other people you can play with do in Alexandria, but if you really want to do the best at the game, that would be an option if you want to get good at Tetramaster. Although we will randomly get cards dropped from enemies and bosses and the like, so it's not that big of a deal. Wait for that girl to leave. You can pop back in here and get some money. A whopping 3 gil. I don't think there's anything. Oh, wait. Come on. Yep, eye drops. That's what I thought. It was some sort of thing, not gil related. We can also talk to this guy here to find out that his cat's gone missing. And we'll find the cat all the way back in that central plaza. Not the one with the ticket booth, but the one with the statue, and where we found those 3 cards. The soundtrack for Final Fantasy IX is also, I think, one of the strongest in the series. Especially when we get towards... I think it's definitely the end of Disc 3 has a very powerful song. Background music that I just... Oh, it's amazing. Can't wait to get back to that point. And now if we return and talk to him again, I believe we'll get a bomb card? I believe. Pretty sure. I will probably, over time, hum quite a bit of the songs as they're playing, because it's infectious. And I want to say that this is going to be a tent. Yep. Okay, good. I remember correctly. Okay, so now we've been introduced to how we're going to save our game. Anytime we find a Moogle, we can save. There's also another minigame that kind of is going to kind of be kind of with us continually as we go through the game. We can do something called Magnet. It's usually a good idea to do this any and every time you run across a Moogle. Basically because they've got a mail system between Moogles. And they're having some difficulty getting mail delivered. So anytime you're at a Moogle, you can talk to them and possibly get some mail to deliver to another Moogle and vice versa. And you will get some rewards throughout the game for doing so, I believe. If not during, definitely at the end of the mini, side quest. I guess it's not really a side quest, as it is just a main game quest that's just optional. And one of the downsides to this is knowing which Moogle is where. It's very easy, I guess, in that way to miss a letter. But I will try to get them. I probably won't get all of them just because I don't have a guide sitting in front of me of like, okay, this is what's coming up. This is what you're going to need to, get mail from this Moogle and then go back to this place and give it to that Moogle. As always, I will keep 2 saves to stagger as we go through our recording sessions. That's going to be it for this episode. Thanks for watching. As always, I'm GreKaosAngel. If you like the content and want to see more, click the video on the right to see the next episode, or click the video on the left to see the ones you've missed.